Okay. Welcome everybody to the April 2022 meeting of the Patterson Park Neighborhood Association. My name is Ernest. I am the president of the Patterson Park Neighborhood Association, and I think we've got a meeting that you're going to be very interested in tonight. And we're starting, a little bit earlier than we normally do because we have a lot of speakers today, and we want to make sure that everybody has enough time and that we're sensitive to your time as well. And I'm actually going to do something a little bit unusual because I'm actually going to start out. Actually, I don't see the person I'm looking for. Okay, never mind. So before we go to our first speaker, I just want to remind you all that Patterson Park Neighborhood Association is made possible by donations from neighbors like you. I just made my donation for the year, and the donations from all of you pays for things like this Zoom account that we're using for this meeting. Later on, when we have our hybrid meeting, we're going to need to buy some AV equipment, so it's going to be used to pay for that. But we also use our budget for things like helping people to have parades in the park or organize races and things like that. And sometimes when they file for permits like that, they need to pay a fee, and Patterson Park Neighborhood Association can cover that fee. So your donation goes to events like that, goes to the meetings that we have here, and also pays for a lot of the activities that we do in terms of, it doesn't pay directly for the string lighting, but it does pay for the expertise and the help that we are able to bring online for the activities that we do. Now, we have on here Nick, who is the campaign manager for Ivan Bates, and I think Mr. Bates is.
Ivan just hopped on.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello, Ivan. How are you? I understand you've had a very busy day today.
I did. I'm sorry. I was just finishing up a radio interview, but still, that's no excuse. I do apologize for being late.
No, that's all right. I was just giving my introductions, but you are the first speaker on the agenda. So are you ready?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Ivan Bates, for all of you who don't know, is a candidate for state's attorney in Baltimore City. I'm sure that he will have plenty to tell you about what that job entails and what he plans to do if he is elected into office. Mr. Bates, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to give you 20 minutes. That's going to include question and answer. So the floor is now yours.
All right, so I'll try to give you a quick overview of who I am, what I want to go ahead and accomplish. My name is Ivan Bates. I'm running to be your state's attorney. And, people always ask me, why do I want the job? They always say it's a thankless job, but what makes me want that job? Quite honestly, I have a 5-year-old daughter. And when I was a homicide prosecutor in the state's attorney's office under Patricia Jessamy, one of the first cases I ever had involved the murder of a young man killing another man at a playground, a park. I take my daughter to the same playgrounds and parks, and I often think about that. At the end of the day, I recognize I've had a very successful career as a defense attorney. I've tried all types of cases and done types of cases. But at the end of the day, that doesn't mean anything if my daughter doesn't have a safer Baltimore. So I'm running specifically for that, not just my daughter, but for your children, not just for our children, for our parents, our adults, our older adults, but also for you. People ask me, well, what are you going to do? Well, it's a couple things. And I wrote a prosecution plan. If you go to my website, www.Bates, BATES, FOR, Baltimore.com, you'll see my prosecution plan. Look at it. It's a 5-pillar plan. Right now, I'll talk about 2 pillars. The first one is illegal handguns. Right now, we have an illegal handgun epidemic. Everybody has an illegal handgun. That's where you see an increase of carjackings, an increase of shootings, increase of murders, increase of robberies, increase of burglaries. Across the board, it's illegal handguns. And then, with the illegal handguns, it's simple. If you have an illegal handgun, and I'm state's attorney, you will be held accountable. You will go to jail. That's not to send you to jail for the rest of your life. It's not to send you to jail. There's this terrible, just we're going to throw you away. We've seen what that super tough on crime does. We want to be smart on crime. Smart on crime means holding individuals accountable. I know a lot of this because I put together my prosecution plan and looked at a great deal of research. The research from the Gun Institute here at Johns Hopkins has to be certainty of consequences with having and stopping illegal gun possession. With that, when you're in jail, say you get a year in jail for your first time gun offense, you'll be home in 6 to 8 months. That's when we, the prosecutors, will ask the court to do a couple of things. One, you will have an onerous period of probation in which you'll have to have educational programs if you don't have your high school diploma or GED. Why is that important? We find out that most of the crime and violence happens with individuals. They do not have their GED, they do not have educational, and how can they have a job? Because they're redirecting their energy in that field because they're not employable. And number two, we're also going to ask the court to make sure that you have the opportunity to have job training and job placement skills. That's what's happening on the state level. On the local level, I'm going to ask the city council to change an act. It's called the Gun Offender Registry Act, GORA. And what GORA does, it says that you have to check in an individual on probation for guns with illegal gun possession, would check in once every 6 months to the police department. And so there are two layers. One is a check-in with the state, and one's a check-in with the police department or a designee from the city, in which when they check in once a month, I'm going to do something nobody else has asked for. Statistics have shown that a number of individuals are carrying guns because they have trauma, they live in trauma, and they need some sort of therapy. I would ask that they go to therapy twice a month when they check in the Gun Offender Registry Program and another time. And this way they can deal with the trauma, whether it's a trauma from having a loved one murdered and feeling the fear of needing to carry a gun, whether it's a trauma of being bullied or some other issues that now have them carrying a gun. No other prosecutor in the country's talked about it in this way. Once we've given them those tools, and probation will probably be 5 years. However, if they can do that with 3 years, stay out of trouble, working to get your high school diploma or GED, you're working, you have a job, and you're in the therapy programs, at the end of those 3 years, I would recommend that that individual's case be changed from a sentence, suspended sentence to probation before judgment. You may not understand that, but that's huge because what it says is we're now putting you in a position to expunge and erase your conviction. You've done the things you need to do, but we're putting you in a position so you can get a job and be a positive member of society. If that's not what you wish to do and you wish to be a repeat violent offender, I would deal with you accordingly, whether that's sending your case to the federal side where you'll receive a stiffer penalty, or within the office, the way in which we prosecute handguns, we prosecute murders. You know, in the homicide division, we'll have 2 prosecutors on every case, a senior and a younger associate, because so many prosecutors have left that office. We'll hold those individuals accountable at a level in which individuals just really have not seen. And that's what you have to do with repeat violent offenders. But I can't do it alone. In my prosecution plan, I talk about working collaboratively. There are programs that they use in Milwaukee called Homicide Review, a program that they also use in Oakland, California as well, called Shooter Review. That's where you have these organizations such as the police department, the state's attorney's office, the mayor's office in crime prevention, the governor's office, U.S. attorney's office. You could have the school police. You can also have social workers. You can also have Johns Hopkins School of Gun Prevention. They will sit down and look at every single case involving a murder. And we'll look at the data to try to figure out the retaliatory issues. In Baltimore City, most of the murders now are retaliatory. People say gangs, no, gangs were 5, 6, 8 years ago. Now it's retaliatory in nature. And what we'll do with the data is we know, for instance, if you have a brother, 2 brothers, one's named Mike and one's named Mark. Let's say Mark is murdered, but we know Mike is a brother who's upset, he's angry, has a prior conviction for attempt murder. Well, what happens is the parole, probation, everybody will go to that gentleman. They will basically give him the service that he needs so that he does not run out there and commit another murder. And that's how you begin to stop it, person by person by person. And for us, it's simple. If we work together on the same page with the police, with all of the criminal justice, public safety groups, we can stop and slow down the crime. It can't be one person. It has to be everybody together, but we have to have that leadership. And people say, where do you get your leadership from? You know, for me, it's simple. I understand a lot with the young kids because I was hard-headed. We all were hard-headed one time, but I lived in a family where my father was a disciplinarian. When it came time I graduated from high school, I struggled. My father told me I needed to figure it out. And I went to the United States Army. And the Army is where I first understood leadership, discipline, and teamwork. From there, I had the opportunity to go to Howard University, and I graduated cum laude with honors. And I had the opportunity to understand that my connection and need to lift as I climb within my community. After that, I went to William and Mary to law school, and I worked and clerked for the NAACP Legal Defense Fund in Los Angeles. From there, my mother asked me once I graduated from law school to not go to California, but to move to Baltimore. And I did in 1995 to help take care of my aunt who was 75. I worked as assistant state's attorney for 6 years under Patricia Jessamy, prosecuting low-level crimes, juvenile crimes, drug crimes, all the way to homicide. After that, I worked for a couple of years with a firm, Shulman Tremont. I had a case before U.S. Supreme Court. And from 2006 until now, I've represented individuals in my own criminal law practice. I've done civil cases, criminal law cases. I do federal cases. I do cases all around the United States. I'm currently doing a triple homicide in Los Angeles right now. So the federal work lets me understand the importance of the federal system, how the federal system works, and the state system I understand because I've done cases in almost every jurisdiction around the state. I understand what works and what doesn't. I understand what you need to fix the system, and having my own law firm, I understand what you need to do to change the morale and trajectory. Right now, the Baltimore City State's Attorney's Office is broken. Prosecutors are leaving left and right. We have to make a change. I ask you to support me so I can be that change. There's no other job that I want. I just want to be the state's attorney for Baltimore City, and that's the only reason I'm running for this, because I know I can make a change and help keep our city safe. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. And we will now take questions. So if you have questions for Mr. Bates, go ahead and put them into the chat, or you can just hit the raise your hand button on Zoom. Okay, we've got Arch. Go ahead, Arch.
All right. Hello. Hey, Ivan.
Hey, Arch, how are you?
Thanks for coming on the call today. I'm great. Thank you. Quick question around, I've had neighbors have asked about prosecution of low-level offenses, and you've mentioned in the past that this is a nuanced approach that you're going to take. Can you expound on that for the audience, please?
Yeah, first, I don't believe in one-size-fits-all prosecution. So Arch's question was basically the low-level crimes, what will I do with them? The current policy of the state's attorney's office, they don't prosecute these low-level crimes. However, I don't believe in one-size-fits-all. I don't believe that you tell people that you're not going to prosecute, but I don't believe in having records and just locking people up. So what a lot of things that I do believe is you direct individuals to treatment. For instance, let's take a couple things. Loitering and trespass right now are not being prosecuted. I don't necessarily think that we need to prosecute them, but we need to go ahead and have the officers engage individuals, give them citations, they can come to court. And when they come to court, they will be directed to do community service in many of the same communities, whether it's cleaning up, whatever it is, they can do the community service because they're still being held accountable and responsible for their actions because they still broke the law. At that moment in time, we can also look at crimes such as CDS possession. In 2012, there were 585 people that were being treated for CDS possession, low-level crimes, and they were in drug treatment programs. And there were 83 deaths. In 2021, there were only 85 people that were in drug treatment programs and over 1,000 deaths. I believe in steering individuals with CDS possession cases to drug treatment. That's very important because I think that can have a major impact on the deaths that we see. I also look at prostitution. Prostitution, when you do not engage, you do not necessarily prosecute, but you have to have the police engage. And why do I say that? Baltimore has become the home and hub of sex trafficking. Sex trafficking and prostitution look so much alike. So you must engage. And that's not to sit down and say, we're going to prosecute a sex worker. What that says is, one, you can't do it out here in the streets in the community like this because that's not for the community. That's not what you have. But if there are any issues, we can have a specialized unit because we know what the Gun Trace Task Force did in abusing sex workers, a specialized unit of special trained officers working near and close by with advocacy groups to bring the sex workers in, to talk to them, to find out they're being sex trafficked, to find out what the concerns, to find out what their issues are, and to see that they need drug treatment or anything like that. And if there are no problems and no issues, then it's a check-in, and then from there we can sit down and talk and monitor if we need to. But also the last thing I want to talk about is attempt drug distribution. People believe attempt distribution is not prosecuted, and they believe that they can sell drugs. That is wrong. We will hold people accountable, and drug dealing is drug dealing, and you must be held accountable. So for me, it's pretty simple. I'm not necessarily focused on locking individuals up, but I must give the police the tools within the toolbox to keep the community safe and do their job in a positive, productive, constitutionally valid way. Thank you.
Okay, great. Next up, we have Steve Craig. Steve, go ahead.
Hey, Ivan. So to echo what Art said, thanks for being here. We really appreciate it. My question for you is about probation. So I've worked in the court system and I've seen it where all too often probation becomes a revolving door for defendants. So they'll take a plea with all this probation time so that they can get out of, not go to jail. And then they get out and probation has all these strictures on it. So they get out and they're not able to get a job because they have all these meetings with their probation officer, and one thing happens or another, and then they get a simple speeding ticket or something, and they're back in jail for all the backup time that they got originally. So do you have any plan for how to help people be successful in probation and to eliminate this revolving door that probationers face?
Yeah, I think it's important because one of the things I talked about, especially the gun side, the Gun Offender Registry Act, GORA, is because you have two layers. Because it's not just the probation, i.e., where you're not focused on finding a job. If the probation is helping you find a job, and there are a number of programs in Baltimore City that you can partner with that do, then the probationary knows where the person on probation is. So we don't need to worry about bringing you in. Also, when you look at the next thing in terms of therapy treatment, at that moment in time when the therapy and treatment classes, that's where a probationary is going to sit down and tell the therapist, I'm feeling stressed because I can't do 2 and 3 things. And that's how the communication starts to being able to articulate those issues and problems. A lot of times, because I'm a criminal defense attorney, I understand the real issues that a number of the young individuals who are committing the crimes, some of their stress level, they can't deal with it. They're angry, they're upset. But now that's why I'm really focused on the therapy standpoint, because it's important to give the individual an opportunity to articulate their concerns and to realize I'm not the only one dealing with this problem. I'm not the only one dealing with the stress. I'm not the only one who has this issue. And now they're talking it out and understanding how to handle those types of problems in a better way. That's why it's important to have a program that holds you accountable, that also gives you an opportunity. And once again, if you complete this program successfully in your probation, let's go ahead and give you a probation before judgment to expunge the conviction. We've wiped away the scarlet letter because the only thing you did now was you sat in jail 6 months, 8 months. That's still long enough to get your attention. And like I said, my father was a disciplinarian. He'd sit me down and then we talk. Doesn't work for everybody, but once you begin to get the individuals in the system and people begin to see how it works positively, then you can have positive, because people don't want to be locked up. People want chance. And what happens is when individuals constantly in and out of jail, they lose hope. We have to make sure we give individuals hope and realize and they understand they're being held accountable for their actions, but we're not giving up on you because you're still our sons, our daughters, you're still part of our community, you're still our children, but we need you to do better.
Okay, great. We have a question here from the chat. I'm just going to read this verbatim. It's from Dave Workmeister. The Keith Davis Jr. case is one that has drawn a tremendous amount of attention to State's Attorney Mosby. How would you handle this case specifically?
Okay, it's a great question. I would say I'm a little biased. I know a lot more about the Keith Davis Jr. case than most. I will not be prosecuting Keith Davis Jr. And whether or not you believe he's innocent, whether or not you believe he's guilty, I'm not here to have that argument. However,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but for those of us who don't know, could you give a brief summary of this case?
Keith Davis Jr. is a gentleman. He's an African-American gentleman, and he was the first person who was shot by the police after Freddie Gray had been shot, after the Freddie Gray uprising. And he was shot at, I think, about 30 or 40 times by the police, struck 7 or 8 times, and he was charged. First, he was charged with having a handgun. He was found guilty of just being having a prior felony and having a gun around him. And now he's been charged for a gentleman's murder who that gun was traced to. Now, he's been tried 4 or 5 times. The first time, the jury was 11-1 not guilty. The second time they found him guilty. However, that case was overturned when they found out that the CI, that means the snitch that the state used, had lied, and not been truthful. So then the third time it was a hung jury. The fourth time the case was found guilty, but this time the case was thrown out because there were faulty instructions given to the jury. So now this is trial number 5. There's no other man, well, there's been one other man in the history of America who's been tried 5 times on the same case with the same evidence. I think that is wrong. I do not think that the criminal justice system can continue to try an individual until they just get a guilty conviction. If you really care, there's no statute of limitations in a murder case. Go back, let's re-examine the case and have a new set of eyes look at it. But the problem is when you continue to try a person over and over and over again, people do not have faith and belief in the criminal justice system. I will not be trying Keith Davis Jr. a 5th time if I am elected state's attorney. And once again, it's not about guilt, not whether you believe he's guilty, whether he's innocent, or getting the family, getting them the justice they need, because justice must be fair. And for me, it's clearly about being fair and making sure the justice system is accountable to everybody, all the citizens, even those who are charged and accused.
Okay, great. And I'm just going to pause here to see if we have any other questions from the audience. Also got some newcomers coming in. Mr. Bates, I actually have read your plan, and this is not interesting to anybody else, but this is interesting to me. Part of your plan includes making sure that the same prosecutor handles a case from beginning to end. I hope I'm stating that correctly, but if not, please correct me. I know very little about how the justice system works, especially how prosecutors handle cases. So if you could explain, please, how does it work right now and why would you make this change?
Thank you. Thank you for reading the plan. Well, it's pretty simple. Right now, you have so many prosecutors coming in and out of the office. So when you're a victim, it's a traumatic experience. You want to tell your story one time. You don't want to tell it 4, 5, 6 times. And so when you have what's called vertical prosecution, you're telling your story one time to this individual. You and this individual begin to develop a rapport, a relationship. How can a victim trust you as a prosecutor at my office to protect them or have their want the best for them and make sure they're safe? It's not just about doing the right thing, but it's also about a level of trust. And the reason I believe you need to have vertical prosecution is to build a rapport with the prosecutor. So you're telling your story one time, the prosecutor understands the issues, the prosecutor understands some of the problems, the prosecutor understands the pain and hurt that you've gone through, and the prosecutor is there to protect and serve the victims. It's very important. It's like if you go to the doctor, and every time you go to the doctor, there's a different doctor coming to see you. Eventually you feel that that doctor and that practice really doesn't care about you, and really it's only about your insurance paying for a doctor to see you. That's not what I want. I want to make sure the state's attorney's office gives individual accountability to the victims of crime so that they can build a rapport and relationships with the prosecutors who understand how traumatic that experience was, and I'll hopefully have them recounted to the public and to anybody as few as possible, as seldom as possible, but making sure we still do our job to serve and protect the community.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. I'm just going to pause here to see if there are any other questions. Okay, does not appear so. So Nick has just posted information about Ivan Bates for Baltimore in the chat, including the website, email, and the plan. So Mr. Bates, thank you very much for joining us. And I should know this, but the primary election has just been moved, hasn't it? Back to July, is that correct?
Yes, it's been moved to July 19th. I actually
that's right.
Today they were talking about moving it back to August. So that means there'll absolutely be no summer. What I can say is thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to see as many people in the neighborhood as engaged and caring. I care and love this city great and deeply, and I know I can't make the change by myself, but with your support, we can make the change together, because obviously we all want something better, not just for ourselves, our families, and our neighbors. Thank you so very much for having me.
Thank you very much, and have a great rest of your night, and I hope you get a little bit of rest between appearances.
Am I allowed to just go ahead and put on mute and just kind of listen?
Oh, absolutely, of course.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. So Moving on now, I am looking to see if is Alison Blood in the house. It does not appear so. Okay, I'm going to do my version of a quick commercial break. And I told you about our donations, but I forgot to tell you about how you can donate to Patterson Park Neighborhood Association. And the way to do that is to go to our website, which I'm going to put into the chat right now. And not only can you make donations, but now you can buy swag. There are koozies, there's a travel mug, and just recently arrived is a new, a new t-shirt. Oh, it's blurred out. Okay, hang on one second. I'm afraid you guys are gonna end up seeing my messy room, but that's just the way it is for you to. Okay, our new t-shirt, it is very soft and comes in all sizes, and we have a whole big box of them. We're very excited to be offering them to you, and we also are going to have them at the Butcher's Hill Flea Market happening in May. So that's that's my plug. All of every dollar that you give to us goes to a great cause and goes into our neighborhood. So with that being said, we're going to move right along to the next item on our agenda, which is going to be Mel. Mel, are you ready? Mel from Thread.
Yes, I am. Thank you so much, Ernest.
Okay.
Thanks. You have something else?
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say Mel Jones is here from Thread. And rather than trying to do an introduction, I think I'm just going to let you explain what Thread does and the important work that you do. I will say that Thread has been to a PPNA meeting before and inspired several of our neighbors to volunteer with Thread, including our previous secretary, Taylor Binnix, I know is a regular volunteer with Thread as well. So with that all being said, Mel, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much. I am excited to be here on tonight, and I am new to the community, so I'm learning a lot about Patterson Park, and I'm excited to hear all of the different things you've been talking about so far. So my name is Mel Jones, and I am the partnership and recruitment manager for Thread. I onboarded about 2 months ago, and I am probably about 2 years into the area. Previously, before coming to Baltimore, I'm a Southern girl, so I'm from New Orleans, and I was in New Orleans and different parts of Louisiana and Texas because I spent most of my career in hunger relief. So what brought me to Thread, and what is Thread? At about the end of the year, I had made a decision to transition out of my role in hunger relief that I've been doing for so many years because over my lifetime, people have always asked me, Mel, how do you get so many people to come out to events? Mel, how do you get, so many relationships built around what you're doing? And it's always been about getting to know people, getting to know the people that are in your communities, getting to know the people that are in your workspaces, enjoying and spending time with them and building relationships. So I have, because of that, quite a large eclectic group of friends from all over the world. And I love that about myself and about my life. But what I realize is that everybody doesn't have that opportunity to kind of go outside those four walls of their communities. And I realized that more so than any time in the midst of working after Hurricane Katrina, when I realized that families were kind of thrown up and landed somewhere, and many of them had not been outside of their own communities, and their communities were their strong knit of survival and their strong knit of relationships, and it created just such a domino effect on how many of those people were able to move forward, and whether or not they were able to survive that disaster in the way that they survived it. When I was looking to leave the Maryland Food Bank, just to kind of get on my own and do some things at the end of the year, I decided, oh, I'm going to work on my coloring book I've been thinking about. I'm going to work on my book that I've been trying to get published, and I'm not going to work. And then I messed around and got on LinkedIn and saw this opportunity for Thread, and I was like, oh my God, it's everything that I thought I wanted to do. As when people ask you, well, what do you want to do next? I want to teach people to care about each other. And that's what Thread does. So Thread is an organization, and our mission is to harness the power of relationships to create a new social fabric. And what does that look like? That looks like one that's more equitable, caring and concerned about your neighbor, your relationships that you're in. And mainly, it's for us about these 6 schools that we support. So there's 6 schools that Thread is invested in, and we utilize our relationship building and our volunteers that come into our network to create an environment around our students who are selected and come into Thread at under a 1.5 grade point average. Because we know that investing in our students and investing in students that maybe other people have decided they're going to count out, or maybe society has said, if you get to this point, maybe you're not going to make it. We know that relationships change things and relationships matter. And so we bring our students into a contract in 9th grade where they are with us for 10 years. And does that mean our volunteers are with us for 10 years? Well, if you want to be, we want you to be. But it looks more a little bit like a volunteer that will come into Thread. They would come in the 1 year, at 1 years. They would stay for 1 year, and then other volunteers would support and wrap that student, and we would do that for 10 years. So every year they may get like a 1 year consistent volunteer, but they get a total of not just 1 volunteer, not 2 or 3. There's 5 volunteers that wrap each student to give them what is called for us a new family dynamic. So we operate where that student is wrapped by these volunteers who have committed and are concerned about them and do a variety of different things for each year as we get to 10. So we're looking at going to different events, taking them maybe if they need a ride to school, because we know that transportation is difficult here in the city and there's not a bus line system for our students. Maybe they're going to help tutor them in a different subject, or maybe they're going to go out on the weekend to catch a game. It's a variety of different things, but we would look at it in a way where we would say, well, what would you do with your family member? Like if this was a cousin, or if this was your brother or sister, or if this was another person that you were supporting as a guardian within your family, what kind of things would you do with them? And that's what you do as a volunteer with Thread. So we have really lofty goals for Thread. We're looking at over the next 10 years of commitment of just connecting our students across racial, social, and economic barriers that show, look, okay, I'm with this volunteer, and maybe this volunteer signed up for Thread and they're thinking, I'm a volunteer, so what does that mean? And what is that going to help me get? It's going to help you build relationships one to another, because we know that when you are in a relationship with somebody, you're not just giving something to them, you're getting something as well. And that's what happens with our students. You impact their lives. And what we've noticed is that under this 10-year contract that the students sign, and when they come into Thread, there's 100% of students who stay with us for 10 years. You know why? Because we don't let them go. We don't let them go. Once you are a student, you come in 9th grade, Thread's motto and thought around our relationships in our community is that we have family members that sometimes we say, you know what, we're not dealing with them for this holiday, but you can't give them away forever. And we think about that the same way we deal with our students. Once you become a Thread student, once you're part of our community and our family, we're going to work with you for 10 years. We're going to invest in you. We're going to support you. You may say, I'm not, able to be a part of this family right now. Maybe I need 6 months off from dealing with anybody from Thread saying anything about come help me, or I want to support you, I want to do anything. And maybe the student doesn't always want to be invested, but we don't ever let go. We stay with them, we work with them, and when they're ready to come back, or if they stay the whole time, we're going to work with them. And so we stay with them all through high school, which with a 1.5 grade point average, we're looking more like a 6-year turnaround time. We stay with them post high school, looking at getting them into a secondary education, whether it's a 2-year or 4-year program. And if it's not that, and because everybody may not want to go to college or may not have that skill set to go to college, but we know that there's a lot of good trades and opportunities for our students to be able to learn how to move into that space and then have a productive life, be able to earn at that same kind of earning level. And then we stay with them beyond that, because once you are invested with somebody in that life for 10 years, you're not letting them go. Now a relationship has merged, and the relationships are merging between volunteers and our students that are expansive. It may be more than one volunteer that they have been invested in over the years. And so we're finding that it continues to transfer on. 79% of our students who have been in Thread for 6 years have graduated from high school. Now, 79% is pretty large when we're considering that many of those students were considered to not even make it through high school had they come in at 1.5 and just not had any kind of support. 62% of the students who completed a 4 or 2 year degree or certification over the 10 years. That's 62% of our students who have now opportunities to be able to move forward, to be able to do some of the things that many had not expected them to do, but the volunteers and the support at Thread always knew they were going to make it. So our vision for growth, as already stated, we're looking at some big lofty goals. We want to have 20,000 volunteers over the next 10 years. That's going to be 5% of the adult population in Baltimore. We want to have 3,040 students at scale, which is 7% of the city schools freshmen. That means we will have a rotating class every year of 304 students that are coming in, 1,200 and whatever that is, added up total. And I'm excited about that because that means that we not only believe that we're able to touch students 64 at a time, we're saying that we know and we believe in our students and our community enough to invest at 304 students a year and to make that a growing number, not a stopping number. So when I started at Thread and I was thinking, how is this really kind of coming together? Well, we set up like a family and everybody has a coach. So we wrap our students with three volunteers who are family members. They report to a head of household. That head of household reports to a grandparent, and that grandparent reports to a staff member. Everybody in our Thread family is coached by another person. They're coached in a way that helps support them, whatever it is that they're having struggles with the student. Whether the student is struggling, they have a community manager that they work with, and all of it continues to go on. We have lots of meetings, lots of support, and we don't just want to have like relationships built. We want to have relationships that show equitable change within Baltimore, equitable change within our students' lives so that they can see that there's opportunities way beyond what they ever thought that they could be. So I am
Excuse
here.
me, Mel, sorry.
Okay.
This is going to be your 1-minute warning.
Okay, thank you. I'll wrap it up. So I get excited. I am here tonight because I want to just let you guys know who I am. I'm Mel Jones, and I'm Thread's recruitment main force out here on the East. And I have a West counterpart who's doing the same thing. And we want volunteers and want people to believe that they can be part of a system that's making great change. And I hope you join me or send me information on how to get into other activities, but we can spread the word and impact the lives of our community. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. So you work with students who are coming in with an under 1.5 GPA, correct? They're high school students. And let's make sure we repeat that again, because this was astonishing to me. You just said that you work with students and you stay with them for 10 years, and 100% of the students you work with are still with you after 10 years?
Yes. So we don't let the students go. So we have students that will come into the system and they stay, the whole 10 years. We have students that may come in, they may change schools, and they may come off of Thread's actual activity area within our school system, but we don't let them go. We still contact them monthly. We still see if they need anything or their family needs any support. And then if they come back like post high school, now they're in the program and they need help finding a job or resumes filled out or applications done, we still support our students. We keep them on for 10 years on our roster of support.
Great. I think if we have any questions, I think we can take one question if anybody has a question for Mel. Okay. Mel, I'm going to ask you to please post in the chat your information, contact info, anything you want people to know in order to get in touch with you, and how to volunteer with Thread. It's a very worthy organization, and I really admire the work that you all are doing. So if you could please just post that into the chat, and thank you very much for coming.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. I'm going to post all my information. I appreciate you guys.
Great. Okay. So we're going to move on. I'm sorry. I know I'm talking fast, but we have a lot to get through here. So next up, we have a little announcement from the chair of our sustainability committee, Alison Blood. Alison, go right ahead.
Hey, everyone. I just wanted to make sure that everyone on the call was aware of our composting drop-off station that we have at the corner of East Baltimore and North Streeper Street. This week we had a little incident of it overflowing. I learned that veteran compost had skipped last week, so it shouldn't be a reoccurring problem. But if you happen to be using the compost drop-off station, please make sure if the lid can't close that we don't put more food in there, because an open container of rotting food is not a great thing to have in the city. Certainly let me know if you see any issues as you're dropping off your food scraps at sustainability@pattersonparkneighbors.org. I also wanted to announce that we are going to be, I guess, having a table at Library Square Day, which is April 30th, to just be there to answer any questions people might have about composting. And also we have 50 kitchen caddies, so just something to collect your food scraps in, to give away to any neighbors that would like it. And just to make sure everyone has the information, our composting drop-off station location is free. Anyone can use it. It's at the corner of North Streeper and East Baltimore. I think that is all I have for you guys right now, but please, well, an update on how much food we've diverted might be interesting. We have to date diverted 22 tons of food scraps from the landfill. So I feel like that's a big accomplishment for the program, and very proud of all the neighbors who are using it. And please, again, send sustainability@pattersonparkneighbors.org any of your questions, concerns about composting. Thanks.
Okay, great. I guess people are really interested if the compost bin is actually ending up overflowing, isn't it? Okay.
Yes.
Thanks for that. Now, we normally do community announcements, but because we are crunched for time, I'm going to ask that if any of you have announcements about, yep, there's Larry, always here with his information for DPW issues. So if you have an upcoming cleanup or any announcements for anything like that, please post it into the chat. Someone just posted something, but they ended up sending it to only me. So just make sure when you type it into the chat that you are typing it to everyone. And we do record, when our recording does include a chat log. So we will make sure to have all of this information included in the email blast that we send out afterwards to all of our members. Okay, so the last on our agenda is going to be Randall Matthews, who is the new owner of 3100 East Baltimore. Randall, we've talked a little bit, and I've actually not asked you, and I'm sorry about that, but how do you like to be called? Is it Mr. Matthews, Chef Matthews, Randall? How do you like to be called?
Either one's fine.
Okay.
Either one. I mean, I'm fine with all. Chef,
all right.
Randall, doesn't matter.
All right. Well, so I do understand that we did make a mistake in our initial email out. We took a picture of the wrong place on Baltimore Street. So could you just clarify that for us?
Yes, of course. So first, thank you, Ernest and the board, for having me here. I know there's just been a lot of confusion, a lot of lack of clarity on my part. I apologize. It's been a long process thus far. So I purchased 3100 East Baltimore Street, which is the corner building. It was the old Mariah Grocery, from what I understand. That was closed down for a few months or so prior to me purchasing the building, maybe 6 months or so, I'm not sure. So that is the property that I'm currently trying to build out a restaurant. But before that, is it okay if I kind of introduce myself?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
So people
the floor is
can
yours now.
So hi everyone. So my name is Randall Matthews. I am from District Heights, Maryland. I grew up in Prince George's County, Maryland, all of my life up until about 18, where I went to school for collegiate football. As you can see, I haven't decided to choose that path. it was about 2 years in or so, I decided that I wanted to kind of pursue cooking. Cooking was always kind of not necessarily a passion, more so a hobby that turned into a passion and love. So I decided to take my interest in the culinary field to Culinary Institute of America in Hyde Park, New York, where I spent about 2.5, 3 years getting my degree there. And then kind of from there, it's just been a lot of opportunities. The biggest one, two of the biggest notable opportunities that I've been blessed to have. The first one was I was a corporate exec chef for Michael Mina. I know that name might sound a little bit familiar to the Baltimore Patterson Park area. We had 2 restaurants here at one point when I was serving as the chef there. One was Wit and Wisdom in the Four Seasons Hotel in Harbor East. And then the other one was Pabu, which is a little bit earlier than Wit and Wisdom. And then with that company, I helped open about 24, 25 restaurants. Outside of that company, I opened up in another 4 or 5 restaurants or so. So all in about 26 to 27 restaurants. And what that means is I would come in, not on the owner side. Obviously, I was just doing it as a salary employee, but I would come in, hire the staff, training, pick the menus, pick more or less the brand, pick the uniforms, all the way down to how we execute service, how we cook the food, what food we're doing, all those things. So fast forward to about 2019, prior to the pandemic, I was the executive chef over at Steven Starr's large, more or less like a steakhouse called St. Anselm. And then someone kind of just came in one day and kind of tapped me on my shoulder, saying that they were opening up this massive open fire flame, cool, vegetable forward, and not just a steakhouse sort of thing. And I said no a few times just because it was different, not necessarily different for me, but just different. It was in Old Town Alexandria. It's kind of, it was not an established food city. So then eventually I came around and said yes. And then we kind of just took off. We opened up in January 2021 or December 2020, something like that. And then from there, about 3 months in, got a lot of accolades, a lot of recognition just for the food and the staff and everything we were doing. And then I think that was kind of like the final straw for me. You know, I always love to produce successful restaurants with other companies, but I want to kind of take that for myself, take that enjoyment for myself. Obviously, it's hard and it's sleepless nights and all those things, but I also wanted to exert that energy into something that was for myself. So just to kind of piggyback a little bit, while I was with the Michael Mina Group, I served as a acting exec chef here in Baltimore at Wit and Wisdom for about 6 months for one stint, and then another 4 months, another stint. And that's where I kind of grew in love with Baltimore, just because it has that like nitty gritty, but it also has a business professional, but it also has that like homey feel. And it's just like very creative, very like not necessarily a hustle and bustle, but more so people care. You know, people want their cities to be better, their streets to be better, the neighborhoods to be better. And that's something I feel like on this side, closer to Washington, D.C., you don't see that in every city, in every neighborhood. You know, there's not community meetings like this happening once a month in every neighborhood. So that's kind of what I fell in love for Baltimore. So that's how I kind of fell into this property here at 3100 East Baltimore Street. So the property for me, as we were looking kind of what's needed in the area, the property for me and the restaurant that we're planning to execute is called Rize and Rest. And Rize and Rest is essentially a all day, like sort of scratch kitchen cafe. So breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And from there, I don't want to just be another restaurant, right? Like I want to be able to facilitate meetings like this. I want to be able to have industry nights where the hospitality industry comes in and be able to get something off, or have Wine Down Wednesdays, or have poetry night, or any of those things that like brings back to the community. You know, that's why I kind of fell into that neighborhood and fell in love with that neighborhood. I want to continue to promote that and push that forward, you know. And I think that that'll allow me to not only feed and fuel the people through food and it'll also allow the community to use this as like a home base, like, I know that might sound a little weird, but, I want it to be like a thought when you can come in and kind of sit and relax and get a larger bite or a snack for lunch and then come back for dinner. So prices will be really comfortable, relatively compatible, nothing like that. And then the offerings would be a little different, kind of in my experience of opening all the restaurants. We opened up quite a few, but some of the favorites for me were we did 2 of them in Dubai, we did about 2 in LA, and then 1 or 2 in Miami, and those were like my favorites. So I'll bring that like West Coast, sort of different Middle Eastern flair as well, but just something that I think that Baltimore doesn't have, and I think that it can be really introduced and really, I think it'll be really received really well for all the 3 shifts, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I understand that, with the surrounding businesses and all those things, I would just kind of want to be able to figure out what a tag team looks like, or just coexist. I know Max does great pies next door, and like, I don't want to even offer pies. I think he does a great job. I think he does a great niche, and I don't even want to offer pies. Maybe even offer his pie on my menu at nighttime, to come over and like share and get some of his pies. Like, I want to really be able to coexist in that space, but also just offer a space that feels like a restaurant in Fells Point, but also has a hominess and the lovingness, if that's even a word, but the lovingness of Patterson Park, if that makes sense. So I think that's it. Thank you for allowing me to chat about it, Ernest.
Okay, great. We already have a question in the chat, but before I get to that, and also if you have any questions, you please feel free to raise your hand on the Zoom. I'm just going to say real quick that when you're asking your questions or giving your feedback to Chef Matthews, let's try to keep things constructive. And what I mean by that is, it's very easy, especially when you're doing neighborhood politics, to talk about what you don't want. And if you feel strongly about that, of course, you should express that. But let's also think about, when this restaurant is coming in, what are your hopes? What would get you coming out of your house and into this place? What is going to get you coming out to get some food, right? So I saw a question in the chat. This is from Kat Durham, and it says, Chef, do you have any projected timelines for this space yet, or is it too soon in the process to predict?
Well, to be honest, we started the process with the architect and all those things a little ways back. We were trying to shoot for spring. Obviously, that's not a thing. We haven't even touched the building. Right now, we're preliminarily shooting for the middle of July. Pending the zoning approval and my project manager kind of getting it done and drawing up a true schedule. But right now it's slotted for middle of July, but I also don't want to rush it. It's a large undertaking. It's a lot of time, a lot of finances, and a lot of energy. I have a child myself as well, and it's like a lot of sacrifices. So I don't want to just give that up and try to rush, So to answer your question, right now it's about middle of July or so, middle to end of July.
Okay,
Hopeful.
Great. We have a, I see we've got a hand raised from Larry Nunley. Larry, go ahead.
Hello, Chef. This is Dr. Nunley from the Department of Public Works. And my question is, what are going to be your hours? I mean, you say you're going to serve breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So what times? Because I get up pretty early. I might need some breakfast sometime. So.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Larry. So right now, the hours of operation is still up and down. I mean, like, we're shooting for maybe sometime in the morning time, 8 or something, 8 to 9. I know that Patterson Park's not that late, so I'll have to probably collab with Patterson, the bar at the corner, kind of see what they think is deemed comfortable as far as closing time. Or what they've had trouble or success with closing time-wise. But probably about 8 a.m. And then if it's a great gentleman like Larry and you want to come in earlier and you see that that's the demand, maybe everyone on the street can open up earlier, you know? Like I really want to make it a community thing.
Good. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, just a quick housekeeping thing, Mr. Matthews. We normally run until 8 o'clock, but I have a feeling that we might run a little bit over. Is that going to be all right with you?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay,
That's
great.
fine.
So we
I
have
might
a
be on.
question in the chat here. This is from Sarah Weber. Liquor license. We like interesting wines in this home. Excited to have you in the. Oh, okay, so I guess the question is whether you're going to seek a liquor license.
Well, and this business plan that we currently have, we've had early talks about a business plan that includes liquor license and serving liquor, but at this time we don't have it for our submitted business plan, and we will not start for the foreseeable future with alcohol. However, as a chef, I love wine as well, and I want to get to a point where we can pair local cheese and charcuterie with wine. But we will not start with a liquor license as of yet.
Okay. Before we we both know, because we've talked a little bit, that there's been a lot of speculation about who your business partners are. So once and for all, can you tell us who you're in business with?
I am in business with no one. This is my sole property. I have a lot of personal funds in it, family funds in it that believe in me and in my experience. I'm not affiliated. I know that someone said possibly Atlas. I'm going to tell you guys, I work with Michael Mina, who Atlas, I don't know if you're familiar, but Atlas took over Wit and Wisdom. So I'm positive that if there's like this feeling of possibly the Atlas group, we probably have the same idea, the same feelings, whatever that is. You know, you probably know better the feeling that is, but I have no affiliation with anyone. I have friends that are chefs. They're going to help out on the project through Michael Mina or try to help out, whether that's menu options or trying to give any finances. I have a couple buddies in DC who own restaurants who give me assistance, but from a legality standpoint or affiliation, I have zero affiliation with any restaurateurs in Baltimore or in DC in general.
Okay, great. Our next question is there an online footprint for this place yet, so we can follow progress online? I'm not sure what she means by online footprint, but I would guess that, for example, is there like a social media account for Rize and Rest Cafe or something like that?
Yes, we just started not too long ago. We're in developmental point of that now, and honestly, it wasn't done earlier just because we kind of did the process a little backwards as far as building and zoning. You know, we got the drawings done prior to zoning. I know that sounds like second nature to some people and maybe not to others, but the first things first is supposed to be this meeting, and the zoning should have happened first to get the space built out. Rather, we kind of took a different approach, not because we purposely did it, but we just didn't know. I mean, I'm a small business owner just by myself. I hired an architect that's not in the state. He didn't know the true process. So we did the process backwards, which is why now we're really coming into our own with this brand and with this restaurant and the thought of this restaurant and the specifics of it. So to answer your question, yes, there's a social media. There's an online website, which is just riserestcafe.com. But you'll start seeing things we want to do in the community, even when we're not open, things that I'll personally start doing as well. And then you'll see, we'll update where we are with the development on our social media handle. So right now, just one picture in the landing page, but it's definitely a link for email subscription. And then that's when you'll start to see possible menu items, free samples, or where we're going to be next to kind of try some of the food, those things. You'll start to see that come in within the next 45 to 60 days.
Okay, great. Our next question is from Alison Blood. She's asking, will your menu have plant-based options?
Absolutely, Alison, 100%. And I say that with conviction because I'm a pescatarian. I know that's different from a vegetarian. So I only eat fish and with the plant-based thing. So sometimes when I do want that burger, I won't eat a red meat burger. So I do want that Beyond Meat Impossible burger or something that, reminds me of that heavy, bulky burger, but not the consequences for my body personally anyway that comes with it. So 100% plant-based options. I think that is what the way of the world's kind of going. But also I think that's something that can be introduced more in the Patterson Park and in Baltimore, downtown Baltimore area as well. So yes, we will. We plan we'll have that.
Okay. I'm not sure if this is a question or not, but Kim Wiggins is saying in the chat, I like bourbon. So I don't know if Kim wants to expound on that, but I guess, you're here for feedback. And so that's the feedback for you, Kim.
Yeah.
I don't need to
so
expand
just
on
to
it. It
note-
was just coming from the wine. No need to call me out like that.
All right. All right.
Well,
It wasn't
well,
a question, it
to
was a comment. That's all.
To kind of expand on that, actually, again, as a small business guy, I don't really know all the processes, so I'm kind of learning. So when I thought about this 2 years ago, some of these things, and it took that long in my brain, some of these things pair well with the bourbons and the wines and all those things. And again, it's not what we're starting with, but I'll for sure make sure we have a menu that kind of coincides with that, as well as tie in some of the different drinks as well. Like a big thing right now is like matcha. It's kind of big, not anymore, but matcha or activated charcoal. And like really, if we get to that point where we can do cocktails like a bourbon and activated charcoal, like martini or something. I know that's just made up, but like creating that drink that's kind of a signature drink for us, but also utilizing ingredients that no one's doing in Baltimore as well. And we'll have the same health forward options for lunch and breakfast as well, like a matcha latte or activated charcoal lemonade or something like that as well. So cross utilizing those ingredients.
Okay. Looks like Larry's got his hand up again.
One quick question. Will you have like small catering? So if someone wants to throw a party or some kind of small event at their homes and stuff, will you be available or entertain things like that?
Yes. So one of the things I definitely want to introduce, let's say if we stick with the quick example timeline of July, middle of July, I want to really start out with the holidays, right? Like offering a holiday box where we have these meals where they're off menu ideas, but they're still seasonal as well, like creating that different feel, but also it can be for takeout, it can be for pickup. It'll be like a special order thing up until the day before that holiday. And then I think once we see traction in that, we'll for sure create a catering platform, a larger home sharing platform, because I know that that's kind of where people are going, right? Like some people still don't feel comfortable going out to a restaurant. Seeing it firsthand as a chef, even now, you're seeing the restaurants kind of pick up, but they're not as busy as they used to be, or the tables are still a little separated. So I know that's kind of where it's going, and I understand that. So yeah, we definitely will have a plan to get that catering sort of thing. It'll just work as you'll place the order online, and then you can just come pick it up. You can probably put it in a few days ahead, and you can pick it up with an option of hot and ready, or pick it up with it properly chilled. You're picking it up the night before, and you can just heat it up with heating instructions for, like, say, Thanksgiving dinner or something like that.
Okay. Our next question comes from Naseem Tar Mohammed. I'm sorry, I may have mispronounced your name, but she asks, it seems as if there was already work happening at the building prior to permits being pulled. Really looking forward to having you all here, but that was a little disappointing. Will you be pulling permits before continuing the work?
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for that comment and addressing it. So I apologize to people that's kind of in the neighborhood. We had an emergency. There's a leak on the roof, and it was causing damages. And I don't know if you all remember that week where we started something through the city. You can legally fix and then of course I went to my architect, Pat Lundenberg, and he understood that as well. There was an emergency leak on the roof. So we kind of fixed that, and that's the work that you saw being done. That is actually warranted without a permit because it was an emergency use. I have pictures of kind of it creating more damages, so we had to stop it. And I don't know if you remember that week, there was like a crazy rain or like rain, sleet, snow happening. So we were trying to prevent further damages from what already happened. And that was the work that was done. So I do apologize for like not updating everyone, but I really didn't have a platform. And it was also like, hey, buddy, I did a walkthrough. My friend of mine went up there, did a walkthrough for me. And he's like, hey, you got some leaking, big problem. Should probably try to get it fixed immediately. And that's what that was. So yes, permits are complete. The zoning was the last step. So now we wait for about 20 to 30 days more where we'll get issued the final documents. My architect can sign off on it, and then we'll be issued a building permit to begin properly building, and that'll be posted the way it should be.
Okay, our next question comes from Joshua Rodriguez. Did your purchase of the Mariah grocery store include the small kitchen that still operates next door?
That's a great question. Thank you for that clarity. No, it did not. The previous owner was selling my unit in the one next door. I only purchased 3100 East Baltimore Street. From what I understand, 3100 or 3102 is still operating and fully functional. I went over there, spoken to them a lot. They actually still have a couple things next door that I'm allowing them to house until we could begin the build, because I can't utilize the space until we get it permitted. So they still have things over that I'm allowing them to kind of store it there, which they're grateful of. But no, I have no ownership of that building, and whatsoever. There's no plan to own that building as well.
Okay. Next up, I see a hand up from Steve Craig. Steve, go ahead.
Sure, thanks, Ernest, and thanks for being here, Randall. So my question is, what research, if any, have you done about what that corner can support in terms of restaurants and cafes, etc.?
Great question. So as we were looking to create this, we saw there's two things, one or three things sort of. The population right now, the latest population for this area is about 49K. The 32.5, so let's just call it 32/33. Those are two things outside of the recent medium home average that you're starting to see after post COVID. That you're starting to see younger professionals moving back in. The housing cost, the home costs, the home values are going up. The renovations are gorgeous, and that paired with the current population, the prior population, paired with that current movement and traction of the housing, is a perfect merge of giving people what they kind of want. And I've asked people, kind of took a survey, I had my architect kind of go around as well, not Pat, the previous guy, and just kind of take a survey, asking people as well. One of the company organizations that I've been personally working with is Friends of Patterson Park. They believe in it as well. They have a large pulse on the city as well. They believe that can sustain over there as well. And it's just offering specifically lunch and dinner as well as offering things that are not offered right now. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Pause now, see if we have any other questions for Chef Matthews. So there was one question that has been conveyed to us, which I'm going to ask you now. Chef Matthews, you've had a career opening several restaurants, sounds like all over the world, in fact. And this person was just curious whether you're going to be continuing to operate other restaurants while you're also opening Rise and Rest Cafe.
Operating in a sense of, meaning, do I still work with Michael Mina, or do I still have a chef job?
This is the part where I say I don't know how the restaurant business works, so,
Yeah,
you can
so-
answer that however you like.
So I guess in the simplest form, the 9 to 5 for others might be a technician, or it might be working in the city. My actual 9 to 5, which is not a 9 to 5, right? We probably work 13 hours a day, is a chef. So yes, I currently work in the DC, Maryland area on this side to fund for my family. And then as we get closer to build out, I'll migrate away from that, this over here, and then I'll completely be the chef, Rise and Rest. But as of now, to still bring in income for my family, and to be able to go to a bank and say like, hey, maybe I need X amount more. Is there something you can assist me with? If I just show that I'm just the chef of Rise and Rest with no income, with no revenue, that's not how finance works. So I need to have a income to be able to gain more capital to produce my dream place, So yes, to answer your question, I hope this answers the question. Yes, I currently still have a chef job here. It's actually a culinary director job in DC. A great friend of mine, I'm assisting them to do that, so they know that once the cafe is completed, I'll slowly start to migrate away from their project solely into Rise and Rest.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm gonna just check one more time to see if there are any other questions for Chef Matthews. Okay, well, I think it is safe to say that people are very interested in this property. It's been, there has been Rize has been closed, or that one of the Rize has been closed, I guess I should say, for several years, and people have been eagerly waiting for that property to be brought up and developed and opened again. So I think you can tell here there are a lot of people who are very interested in what you're going to be doing with the place, and they're going to be following developments very closely. So thank you very much for coming. Thank you for staying a little bit late with us, but I think it's been a very worthwhile conversation.
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me. I really
All
appreciate
right.
it. And I apologize to the community again for not bringing up this sooner, not introducing myself sooner, but I'm very excited.
Right. Well, here you are. And just before we leave, I'm just going to ask you to type in any kinds of contact information or websites or anything that you'd like the community to know about. Just type that into the chat for us, if you could, please. And while you're doing that, I'm just going to close out. So I know we ran a little bit late, but thank you all for coming. I think this has been very well attended. And just one more announcement, because I know that Miss Cheryl is not here. Library Square is doing a spring cleanup on April 30th. It's going to be a good time. There's going to be food. It's probably going to be music. Going to be a lot of community members out there, and we hope to see you there. I certainly am going to be there, and you'll be seeing more information from us. I'm sorry, Larry. We're running over time. You got to make this really quick.
Okay, it is. Just that April 30th is also the mayor's spring cleanup. So anybody that's participating in that, still reach out to the mayor's office. If you have any questions about DPW, just drop me a email or a text. That's it.
Right. I believe this cleanup at the Library Square is part of the mayor's spring cleanup. I think it's one of the events that is associated with that. So we'll see you. If I don't see you before then, I will see you all on April 30th at Library Square. And with that, we're going to stop recording. And thank you all very much for showing up, and have a wonderful rest of your day.